I'm Catriona Willoughby. I'm a researcher at ORC. Can someone at the back just like wave if you can hear me? Because I'll. Lovely, great. Ish, good to know. Higher. I'll do what I can do. So I've included the tagline here, research to real world practice for farmers, because that's something we were really keen that Feed the Soil was able to deliver. Now, obviously, my job is to kind of crunch the numbers and make sure that anything that we're giving has really hard backing. But I'm going to talk through our thinking behind the project, the approach we're taking so far, and what we hope it can achieve, essentially. And then I'll pass over to Andrew, I think, to finish us off. Oh, good, my slides work. Number one done. So the idea, I think, as Bridget and Henrietta have already covered, was to build this research and knowledge exchange, and that's really the heart of what we have with Feed the Soil, and it's a collaboration between ourselves, the land gardeners, and we're also working with farmers, either in the capacity of case studies and also trialists as well, getting more into depth. So we've kind of split the work into these streams where we're learning what practitioners are already doing, and we're also engaging with a few very focused trials to try and answer some of those key questions and potentially barriers for composting. There we go. So I feel like these slides I prepared, right, I'm talking to a room of people who I'm sure are already very experienced in this area, but we all know it can be a really useful way of processing the organic waste that we're producing on the farm, but it does have its share of almost oversaturation of information, potential pitfalls in management as well. We all know that possibly comparing a compost which you think you've produced the same way with your neighbor, you don't necessarily come up with the same result at any point. So, oh no, an unhappy ears. So you don't always come up with the same result, even if you think you're composting the exact same as your neighbor, basically. And what we're trying to do is work out how to account for that variability and how to actually give advice that's really based in the research that we carry out. We've got a few systems that we're currently considering. I've underlined currently here because if any of you are carrying out a composting techniques that you think is really brilliant and it works super well for you, I'm always very happy to hear about it, and we're very happy to talk about potentially including it in the project. So we've got some vermicomposting, we've got some bokashi, we've got some Johnson Sioux. We're looking at practitioners who do aerobic and also some CMC as well. All of these have various drawbacks and advantages, which I'm sure some of you will be more or less familiar with. What we're trying to do with the work is collate this into a quite easy to digest sort of starting format. I think it was a cookbook was suggested at one point, so that if you're thinking about your composting journey and what you can do with what you have, it will kind of form a base point for that. So we're trying to look at, as I think Bridget and Henrietta outlined, a few different questions around composting. Number one, is it actually going to help your farm in terms of your income and the long-term sustainability of your business? How does the economics of the production work out? This is in terms of crop yields, in terms of your time, your labor, your fuel, your feedstocks, compliance. We also want to look, of course, at what it's doing with our soil in terms of soil health, and I've written function here just in terms of the ability of it to support your yields or your livestock as well. So the first kind of step of this, and I will probably defer to Bridget and Henrietta for specific questions on this, is case studies. Essentially, we went on tour around various experienced practitioners who produce various different types of compost and collated them all into case studies. These case studies are available on the Land Gardeners website, and they will be linked through to ORC as well, which essentially highlights the journey that various different farmers have taken into their composting. I've thrown up quite an annoying little graph here just as a slight taster for some of the stuff that we've been looking at in amongst our first set of case studies, essentially. And the key finding that's come out so far is different composts for different systems in terms of the production, but also in terms of what they're being used for as well. So some of the characteristics were actually really similar between the different composts that we looked at. But we did also find that there were some quite big differences, particularly in terms of the biological aspects of the compost itself. We had one farmer here, Farm C, might be raising some eyebrows. Their compost was really high in total fungi, but the fungi to bacterial ratios were quite similar. So anyway, there were some quite interesting findings coming out. And we have summarized these for open publication. I think if there are any academics in the room, we understand how peer review can be a very long process, but we're very, very keen to get these findings published in any way that we can. And this will include summaries on our website, which will be open source and freely available as well. That's kind of the whole ethos of this project, is to generate some useful information. I'm going to talk a bit about the trials that we currently have underway in 2025. These slides are out of date, but I'll talk about them a bit anyway. We've got a couple of sites in the northeast of England so far where we're doing some quite in-depth trials looking at aerobic composting, bokashi and vermicomposting as well, with that really key central question of how does the production impact the on-farm value. And there's a few different ways, obviously, that we can start to look at this through the crops, the soil, the emissions, and the economics. So for the crops to start with, we're actually following the compost itself through the various stages of production based on different feedstocks. We're looking at nutrients, dry matter, organic material. An open question in composting, certainly from an academic perspective, is there's really not that much out there very consistently shows the impact on microbes or the content necessarily. So we're experimenting with a few different ways that will suit compost to be analysed in that way. We're looking at PLFA, PFLA even, which is used in soil, and we're trying to explore this. It's quite a new field in compost, so we're trying to just bring that consistency. So we're going to carry out repeated sampling throughout the year just to track the progress on these trials of the compost itself. And then hopefully it's going to bring together all of these areas through assessing the compostability to support the growth of the plants themselves. We're also going to be carrying out some field soil health assessments as well. We're going to be tracking fuel use and management operations, which is probably the most annoying part for the people who are participating in the trials, is I have to sit down with them for hours to work out specific labour, to work out fuel, to work out everything else that's going on, which might be costing you money, and also to offset that with potentially the balance of the operations in terms of emissions as well. So we're exploring a few different ways to calculate our emissions using carbon calculators, using our own in-house PG tools, and with the economic team at ORC as well, because we're aware this is probably a really key finding from this project. And it all does relate back to that central question, and it depends what you're looking for from your compost, but we do hope that at least one of these areas might be of relevance and of use. So that's the end of my little spiel about what we're doing on the science side. Now, this is a very open project. We're running until the end of 2026. So if there are any practitioners in the room, academics, or anybody who's interested, please do come say hello. I'm always happy to talk about the project and to see who might get involved. I've put my email address on the website there, and my lovely colleague Philippa over here runs the ORC website. So if you are interested, do get in touch, hit us up. I think that's all from me. So I'll pass over to Andrew for now, but I'm very happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Sorry, Andrew.
No, you're right. Hi everyone, good morning, and don't be afraid to come in if it is raining, so do come in, and there's plenty of room in the corners and things. So I was brought into the project quite early on, and I was providing a farmer's sort of perspective and a little bit of insight into the workings on farm and how practical some of these processes can be, how easily they are for farmers to adopt, to scale, and then the workload involved with it, but also then potentially the benefits. I think everybody is aware that applying organic manures, and in particular the carbon within, into the soil is a beneficial way of feeding the soil, improving soil health, increasing the resilience of the soil, but how do you do that? And it's a number of options available to you, and in an ideal world, if you had no limitations, if labour was available, if you had the funds to do so, the solution would be to do a little bit of everything. We're all aware that actually what we're trying to do, and a healthy soil requires a very diverse microbial population. If you only feed your soil one particular type of food, only one particular type of microbe or group of microbes will thrive. So if you can provide a diverse mix of foods into the soil, you'll be feeding a diverse population of microbes. Now that sounds really great, but actually how do you do that? You cannot on farm, and I know there's one guy in here that's got a number of different methods of composting, but is it realistic and is it possible to have Johnson Sioux, have bokashi, have vermicomposting, have thermophilic? Is it possible, is it feasible to have all of those systems on farm working for you? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. When you look at and you've worked out what you have available to you, your resources, your interest, the time, the people that you have working for you, if they have a natural interest in one particular method over another, you can guarantee that they're going to do that process better than they would do another. So it's about maximizing what's available to you to try and get the best benefit from it at the end of the day. From the little bit of work that I've done and the little bit of travel that I've done recently, the whistle-stop tour for me would be that each different process has a place on farm, and it will depend on what you're trying to achieve. So a lot of work that was done by ADAS was looking at the use of the carbon applied and the benefits that it provides to the soil. Something like a biochar or a thermophilic compost was improving soil structure more than something like bokashi. Something like Johnson Sioux was having a better effect on soil biology than something like biochar. Something like bokashi was providing more energy to feed the biology that was already there. So different composts provide different benefits and will achieve different outcomes. So it really, before you decide which one is for you, you've got to ask what you're trying to achieve. How are we going to get there? Do we have the resources to make that happen? And if we do, then you can take the first steps towards adopting a particular practice. If you're fortunate and you can do more than one, I would absolutely encourage you to try, to play, to have a go, get your hands dirty, and experiment. We all, and there's a few of us here, we all make compost, and I always compare it to making a chocolate cake. We all have a recipe for chocolate cake. It's all a little bit different. Somebody might put a bit more sugar, some might have a bit more butter. It'll all be different, but at the end of the day, we'll all have a chocolate cake that tastes pretty good to eat. Mine maybe not, but others definitely will. The point is, if you don't try, you'll never know. And once you've done it once, you'll do something slightly different the second time, you'll do it differently a third time. That's not a bad thing. You've got to experiment, but watch, look, see how it responds, see how the soil responds, see how the plants respond, and see how you, your team, and your environment responds. Once you've found something that works, keep going, keep trialing, keep practicing, and keep tweaking, and enjoy it. Ultimately, that is the key.